Hey guys, Daniel here. This is another video, and in this video, I'm actually joined by a legendary artist. He is actually from Ireland, Clare. See, I know he's from Clare, but he's my personal best friend. It's Declan Shalvey. But Declan has worked on some amazing comics, and I have a full list of the comics he worked on here because, like I said, I'm very professional. He's worked on All Star Batman, Moonknight, Injection. He's worked on his own comics, Bog Body, Savage Town. He's worked for Marvel, DC. Basically anything you can think of. And he has an upcoming comic called Immortal Hulk Flatline. When does that come out?
That comes out February 17th.
February 17th. And as I'm sure I think you can pick it up from your local comic book shop. But you can follow him on Twitter for updates or anything like that. But Immortal Hulk Flatline, it's a really new, amazing comic. But yeah, Declan has agreed to come on, so I'll probably be annoying him for the next hour or so. We'll just be talking about comics in general or whatever you can think of. But Declan, thank you so much for coming on.
My
And
pleasure, man.
my first question is, how did you get into comics? Probably the $1 million question, as John McCrae calls it.
Like just how I got into comics in
Yeah.
general. I mean, it's been so long now, but I mean, I remember. I mean, like I watched a lot of cartoons when I was a kid, and comics are a great way to kind of like, enjoy them without like. Back in my day, if you didn't see something on TV, that was it. Like there's no catch ups or streaming or anything. It's just if you didn't see it, that was it. You never saw it again. You know, if you missed the Batman cartoon, that was it. Like there was no chance to see it again until years and years and years later. But anyway, sorry. Well, it's probably a mix. I remember really liking. I liked the Turtles, and there was some Turtles comics. You can get them in newsagents. There was like say DuckTales, but also Asterix comics I picked up in the local library. The library wasn't too far away from my school, so it was art and stories that I got to enjoy at a young age that were accessible to me. I didn't really have access to say X-Men or Spider-Man or things like that. But when the cartoons kicked off, my mom helped me track down like a way to get like American comics. We went to my local local news agents and asked a lady there if she could get them, and she didn't know what we were talking about. But fair play to her, she was able to get like X-Men, like the one X-Men comic. And I thought that's all there was until like you'd see ads for other comics in there, and you're like, oh, there's other comics. But not too long after that, maybe a couple of years after that, Panini started doing those reprints. You see them on newsstands now all the time. You see them in newsagents. But the first issue came out when I was like, I think it was 95, so I would have been 13, I guess. And they collected some older Marvel comics. There was like 3 issues worth in one issue. So that was a great way to read a lot of American comics because they were just being reprinted in new volumes. So that was great. So I remember I was reading the end of the Clone Saga in American comics because a newsagent was able to get that in if I ordered it. And then I was reading the beginning of it at the same time because the reprints were like 5 years in the past. So you're reading a long saga at 2 opposite ends. But that was it. I just got so hardcore into it, man. Like I loved drawing, and I was kind of drawing comics before I even realized what comics were, to be honest. You know.
Yeah, and what was the first comic you ever worked on? Because growing up, I imagine that was the dream, just to work on American comics, like superhero comics. So what was the name of the? I think I know the name's called Hero Killers, I think.
Yeah, that was the first comic I ever like. I mean, I drew comics before. I drew this Double Dragon knockoff for a book competition when I was in school, and I won the competition too. And I got to meet Davy Fitzgerald, the Clare hurler, and I don't like hurling, so I didn't care. But yeah, I won a book award for a comic. But like, I drew it and I colored it on the paper, and I got it bound and I handed it in. Like, so it was like a comic made of original art. It was so stupid, like, because what you should do is you should photocopy it, you know, like, but I know the actual drawings I handed in as a comic. But yes, but anyway, I always wanted to draw. I wanted to draw comics. I didn't know how to do it, so I went to art college in Limerick. And when I finished, I kind of didn't really know. I didn't really know where to go from there. You know, you don't go to college for comics and then all of a sudden you're a comic book artist. So I did a lot of research, and I met PJ Holden at a convention up in Belfast. It was my first time ever going to Belfast. I was terrified. You see the British flags around the place. You're like, oh. But he was very nice, and he encouraged me to go to a convention in the UK. So I went there, and I met other people who were trying to break into comics, and people who were in comics, like Jock and who else did I meet? Liam Sharp. I got my first X-Men comic that I ever bought, signed by him. He drew that issue. It was an amazing experience, but I realized if I was going to draw comics, I needed to actually draw them. And I took the advice I got from everybody at that convention, and I applied it to this comic. And when I was at the convention, I met a writer called Andy Winter, and he was writing comics and getting them published, but he wasn't drawing them. So he had all these comics he had done that were drawn by different artists, but they were his stories. So he said he really liked my stuff. What I did was just show my portfolio around to anybody who would look at it, and he really liked it and said if he wrote a story for me and I drew it, he'd publish it. So he couldn't pay me, he couldn't afford to pay me, but he could afford to actually get the comic published himself. So I went for it. So that was Hero Killers. So he wrote that. It was like a 30-page supervillain story. I drew it, and it's true to his word, he did publish it, and it ended up winning like best British black and white comic that year at it was Bristol was a big show at the time. Yeah, and that was my first comic, and then from there I got like small gigs here and there.
And then how did you like get into Marvel? Because that's a big one. I know that your first comic for Marvel was a little known comic called Thunderbolts. But you are feeling, you see it very professional, like I said. But yeah, so how did you get that job on Thunderbolts?
Well, I mean, that was 2010 when I got Thunderbolts. But keep in mind that Hero Killers was 2005, 2006. So there's a big gap between my first comic and like a published work and Marvel. You know, it's a big gap there. So I did different things. I did some more small press stuff, and I did some graphic novels for the UK. But I think the big thing was I was working on a book called 20 Days Later, which is based on the horror movies, and that was for Boom Studios. So that was my first time getting published in the States. Which really, if you want to be hired by Marvel and DC, you need to be kind of visible in the American market. You know, the stuff I was doing for the UK was for schools and stuff, so they were never going to see it. You know, you need editors seeing your work, so that was great. And when I was working that book, I went to a convention in Charlotte, in North Carolina, and you know, I'd been doing things like we've been doing the Eclectic Mix sketch blog. I've been doing a blog with another set of artists called Comic to Art, and you know, a lot of people have been seeing that stuff while I was just working away in Ireland. And by the time I went to the States, not only did people know 20 Days Later, but they knew a lot of that kind of blog stuff, just basically posting fan art, you know. So it was cool. So I got to meet lots of people who knew me, but maybe I knew them, but I didn't think they'd know me. The internet opened up things in a huge way, you know. When I was starting out, like the internet was around, but it didn't, you know, it hadn't become the huge help that it ended up being. But I met a guy called Jeff Parker, who was the writer of Thunderbolts, and he was just very nice. And he asked if I wanted to, if I wanted him to hand my stuff to Marvel, so they'd look at it. And sure, like I wasn't expecting that at all. So I was just like, I know, like I don't want to be the kind of the self-sabotaging self-deprecation that we have here, you know. So he was just kind of like, what? He's like, you're not being rude at all. Like I was like, no, I'd be inconveniencing you now if I made you do that. He's like, you're not making me, I'm offering, you know. So I kind of just shut up and just let him do that. And true enough, he did. And the editor of that book, Bill Roseman, who you might know now, he's the guy in charge of all the video game stuff. Do you know the Spider-Man video game?
Oh yes.
Yeah. So he's in charge of all that stuff now. So it's like, and he's the guy who hired me at Marvel. So that was basically a 2-issue fill-in, because the artist Kev Walker, he was the Thunderbolts artist, but he had drawn a double-sized anniversary issue.
Yeah.
So basically, they needed someone to fill in for 2 months to kind of, because the book was monthly, and they needed somebody to fill in. So I was basically right place, right time. Jeff suggested me, so I That's how I broke in there. So basically, I did those 2 issues. I had no idea if I'd ever get to do any more. You like, it's not like they go like, "You're in, kid." You know, it's like, "Here's our opportunity. Don't mess it up." And thankfully, I didn't. And they for some reason kept hiring me after that.
Some unknown reason. Sympathy, probably. Who knows?
I would think so. They saw my poor the poor dirty Irish fella. Like, let's take some pity on him. But
You're very good.
no,
You're very good. As they patted you on the head.
hey, I'll take it.
Uh, yeah, but you actually touched on this a little bit. Growing up in Clare, for those of you who don't know, Clare is a county in Ireland, and essentially it's just one big field, few cows,
Correct.
some trees. They do have a Marks and
Sheep.
Spencers. Yeah, oh yeah, of course, of course.
I don't know if they do have a Marks and Spencers. Actually,
You lied to me. You said there was a Marks and Spencers.
I said there was a Dunn's.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah, and I checked. There's a Tesco's as well. I didn't think we had a Tesco's, but it used to be Quinsworth. It's Tesco's now. But I don't think they do have Marks and Spencers. But yeah, no, I grew up in a town called Ennis. It's in County Clare, which is the west of Ireland, and like, I mean, I was actually born in Dublin, so my mum would take me for like for my birthday, she'd take me to Dublin for the day, and like I'd go to Forbidden Planet it was in Dawson Street back then. She'd just leave me there for the day because I didn't have access to comics like say you would, you know. So
yeah.
While I was getting X-Men, like I didn't see like Hulk comics or you know, anything outside of Spider-Man or X-Men. I didn't have access to because I just didn't really know enough about it. So I'd get like Wizard magazine. That was one way I'd find out about comics that weren't those. But when I could get to go to Dublin like twice a year, that's when I would just buy so many comics and just pour over them when I was back in Clare. But yeah, I'm not sure. So I'm not sure. You can't remember the question.
No, you're fine. But growing up in Clare, did that? I mean, because I've asked John McCrae this, because growing up in Ireland, there wasn't much of an access to comics in Belfast, and he touched on it how if he maybe grew up in America, he probably would have gotten into comics quicker. Do you think it's the same for you? Like, do you think growing up in Clare in any way hindered your love for comics? Because, you know, you couldn't exactly go to your local newsagents and pick up a Marvel comic.
No, you're right. I couldn't. I mean, I had to jump through rings in order to get those comics, you know. I think now, though, there might be something to be said for that. Things are so easy to get right now. Like if I mention anything to you, you could probably go on Amazon or go online and find it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's amazing that you can do that. But at the same time, you know, there's nothing quite like, you know, like the way when you'd be searching for back issues or, you know, the rings I jumped through to be able to get to read an American comic made it all the more satisfying when I did get it, you know. So it definitely hindered me in that I didn't have access, but I think I think that because I was so passionate and so determined to get more, there might be something said for that because it's not something I got sick of because it was around me all the time. It's something that I had a real drive to get more of, and that kind of perseverance may have actually helped me in the long run. It's hard to say, but it was tough. Like it was tough to get any kind of material like that.
And then the first time you ever worked on a Marvel comic, it was of course Thunderbolts. But did you ever get the chance to like kind of hold Thunderbolts and see a comic? Did it have your name on it? Because you were, it might have. So it had your name on it. It was the first ever Marvel comic with your name on it. Like, do you remember what that felt like? I would imagine it felt a bit, you know, surreal.
It was amazing. Well, it was amazing one because like I got that gig when I was in New York. I came back to Clare and I was drawing it, like in the room where I used to draw like superheroes for fun, you know, where all my toys were. So like the thing I've been doing my whole life as a hobby, I was doing it as an actual job for real, you know. That was so weird. And then I think I was in America when the issue came out, so I got to go to a comic shop and pick it up, and it was insane. It was crazy. Like I still when I get my comics in print, there's a sense of satisfaction that comes with like getting to actually see the real thing. Like so I have the Hulk. I got the PDF for the Hulk comic yesterday, and that's great. I'm delighted I can read it, but it won't feel 100% real until I actually get my hands on it, you know. But yeah, like it just felt like it was just one of those big life moments I'll never forget, you know. To actually have a dream and accomplish it is crazy.
And I think you've done a lot of covers. And like you touch on this in your art book here, art book, pick it up. Where can people
Hey.
buy it? Big Bang Comics.
Mhm.
Where can people pick up this?
You can get it anywhere, but I know Big Bang definitely have copies.
Yeah, but make sure pick it up. You see, I'm promoting you already. So
I appreciate it.
I know, yeah. I'll just be a walking advertisement for you. I'll bring up anything, pick up a comic, yeah. Anyway, God, where was I going? Oh yeah. So you've done a lot of covers, and you've in this art book kind of touching. You never really taught yourself so much of a cover guy. You've done, I think, over 150 covers. Is it
200? I just counted recently. I don't know. Did you see that USA agent cover I did? I drew a little 200 on it because I was counting up what I had done, and I realized I was about to do my 200th cover. So just made that little note. It's insane. I can't believe it.
I know. And another comic that you worked on that you're very known for is, of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up, your work on Moonknight, which you're absolutely known for. Moonknight was an amazing comic. But in terms of Marvel comics, it was very dark. I mean, I don't know if that's the right word, but it was a bit, I kind of took it in a darker direction, kind of like Black Label, I suppose. But growing up, of course, you always wanted to do Marvel comics. And, you kind of thought of Captain America, big and strong, just happy. And then when you get to work on Moonknight, which is kind of darker and sad, did that still feel Marvel to you?
Oh, for sure. I mean, well, like I like the darker stuff anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's weird. My sensibilities lean towards the dark, but like I still love that kind of stuff. I still, the great optimistic superhero stuff I still think is great. So I'm a weird mix of, but look, like Batman is a perfect mix of that, So I always gravitated to characters like Daredevil or Punisher or aren't like the street level character Marvel stuff is the stuff I like the best. That's why I loved doing Thunderbolts, just because it was Iron Fist and Luke Cage were in the first issue. And I was hoping I'd get to draw Daredevil because it was a Daredevil crossover, but I never got to, so I was really, really annoyed. But no, I mean I prefer draw like Moon Knight over Avengers. I love the Avengers and stuff, but I don't think I really necessarily want to draw them. I don't want to draw a big, like, bright and happy superhero stuff. I'll read it. I still like reading it, but drawing wise, I wouldn't connect with it as much. So Moonlight was perfect because it was so much of my sensibilities mixed in like the darker pocket of the Marvel universe. So no, it was perfect for me. I loved it.
And your art book here, some of your Moonknight art, which is absolutely gorgeous. I think it's amazing. But there's actually one issue I want to talk to you about, and I think it's probably one of the most famous. It's actually issue 5. And
that's everyone's favorite.
It's essentially just one issue of pure fight scenes, and it's amazing. Some guy gets thrown over a banister, he breaks his back on the banister, and basically, so there's one whole issue, and it's just issue 5, and essentially it's just one big fight scene. Is that your favorite issue? What was it like to get to draw that?
No, it is. It is like it was my favorite. I mean, I love the first one. They're all brilliantly written by Warren. Brilliantly written. The guy's a genius. But like some of them are just kind of crazy and were really hard to draw, like the Dreamscape one, like they were really exhausting to draw. I'm not complaining, like they were exhausting because I put everything into it. I could have half-assed it and it would have been fine. But the Scarlet, which is that 5th one, it's just it's just storytelling wise, it just really, really clicked with me. Me and Warren had talked about this film called I think it's called The Warrior King. It's a Tony Jaa film, and there's this great scene where this guy it's all one take, and he runs up this it's big room, and he runs up the stairs. Stairs go all the way up the room.
Yes, I remember I seen a stuntman react to that. It was
okay, right.
Something I have, but yeah, I remember like
watch the film. The film's class, although you might be a bit too young. But it's fantastic. But I remember mentioning that scene to him. He mentioned a scene from another film. No, the same film actually, where he breaks everybody's bones that he fights with. So we were both on the same page as regards like a kind of an action comic, like make a comic totally action, and it just totally clicked with me storytelling wise. So that one was very satisfying because it was basically creating a whole set piece and doing this whole action sequence. That was all. It took it was a lot of work to get right, but it just clicked with me in a big way.
And I was watching, it was like panel X panel. I think you've been on it a few times. But I kind of see comic panels. I think, oh yeah, they're cool. but a lot goes into actual storytelling, because a lot of storytelling is panels, and I didn't know so much about that, but I watched a few of your interviews. Panel X panel, check them out. But you like this, like you do a great job of storytelling. So is that important for you when doing a comic like this? Because I thought it's up to the writer to do the storytelling and then to the artist to bring that to life. But I'm very wrong in that, because it's kind of a mixed effort. The artist has to do a lot to also do the storytelling, and I didn't know that. So is it hard for you to do storytelling in art, and do you find it easier storytelling in terms of writing?
Well, no. Is it hard? Yes. Like I think if you ask any artist, the hardest part of it is doing the layouts, because that's where you're actually figuring things out. Like technically, penciling is the hardest part because it's more actual work. It's my least favorite part. But like actually doing the storytelling and layouts, it is the most frustrating but satisfying part of it. It's where you're solving. It's like you're given a Rubik's cube and you're trying to make it work and see which way the best way to do it. Because there's so many different ways to do it. I just did. Do you know the artist Elsa Charretier? Sorry,
No,
she's
I'm
a
not.
French artist. I should look her up. She's great. But anyway, she just did this and draw it separately, and then compare and see what they look like. So I just saw her page and I did my page, and it's interesting because it's the exact same script but two very different ways of telling the story. And like, so no two artists, some artists will draw something very similar, some will draw something completely different, and it depends on their sensibilities, what they're going for, their approach. And after years of drawing, I've established an approach that I like, and there are things I like and I don't like, and it's about finding what works. And the best thing is when you have a writer that clicks with you as well. So me and Warren clicked really well. Me and Jeff Parker really clicked really well. Same with Brian Wood. Like, I'm lucky that I've worked with writers, and I'm also lucky that I've worked with other writers who are artists as well. So they know how.
Yeah.
You don't just write stuff on the page and give it to the artist to figure out. If you're doing a good job, you're writing with visuals in mind that help the artist unlock things and better, and come up with better visuals, so you can have a bad writer and a great artist do a terrible or good comic. You can have a brilliant writer and a terrible artist do the same. The results vary from book to book, but it is the part that I like the most. Sometimes it's kind of frustrating because you fix it, you do the storytelling and have it all worked out. You're like, oh, I did it, because you can read it in your sketchbook and you're like, oh, now I've got to draw the thing, which is a whole other job, But and I do keep that in mind when I'm writing. I try, and when I'm writing scripts, I would like it to be a script that I would get, that I'd enjoy drawing from. Some are more enjoyable, so probably do my best to make sure that whether I hand off is something I'd be happy to get.
Yeah, and on the cover, these are obviously all characters you work on. But this would I be correct in saying so? You got to kind of choose the design of Moonknight, and you went with this one, and Moonknight fans absolutely adore it. I just kind of probably show it. It's kind of he's wearing a suit. But did you get to choose that design?
No, that was Warren had already. There was a series called Secret Avengers that Warren wrote with all these different artists. I actually encourage you to read it. It's got a Stuart Eminem, Jamie McKelvey, Alex Maleev, who else? One Kev Walker. All the artists were great. And in the Michael Lark one, Moonknight was in a white suit. So that was an idea Warren had already had. So I think he wanted to work that into the new book. But that was it. It was just that he was in a white suit. I had full control over whether his mask was like, I could have changed things around, but I liked the idea, so I just refined it a bit. I gave him little like kind of moon cufflinks and buttons and things like that. I just streamlined it a bit, so I can't take full credit for it because it had been done as it had been tried out before, and it was something Warren had come up with. But his idea is that he would have different costumes. So there was the Mr. Knight one, which is the one you saw there, and the superhero costume that was 100% me. And then he basically just said like a superhero costume, so that I just went with that. And then the other one was this like bone skull costume, which is a whole other weird. Yeah, but I wish I could take 100% credit for Mr. Knight, but it was basically an idea that Warren had that I refined.
And you've been to New York Comic Con. I've seen a couple of photos on Twitter, and you've met people who have dressed up as this Moonknight. So what has that been like to see people of a character that
It's really cool. Like, I mean, I kind of prefer seeing them in the superhero costume one because that's what I did from scratch,
Yeah.
and I designed it to be basically non-cosplayable. But there's some really great cosplayers out there who've totally shown me up. Um, but no, it's really cool. I mean, it's the only character I've really created that's kind of resonated like that, or design I've created, I should say. But no, are you kidding, man? It's really cool. Like, you know, it's very humbling. Like, somebody took the time and effort to make something that was like something you made is it's really really cool. Like, I can't lie.
And do you have any thoughts on? I doubt you're working on it. Do you have any thoughts on Oscar Isaac playing Moon Knight? I think that's been confirmed, but in the new Moon Knight show,
I'm against it.
you're against it. Oh, are you? Wow.
No, no, I'm not.
Damn, I could have
I
gotten an exclusive.
I could have, yeah. Honestly, I don't really care. Like, whoever they get, as long as it's a good actor, you know. Because I remember everybody. I mean, maybe you're too young to know this, but like Chris Evans wasn't really taken particularly seriously.
Yeah,
He had done a lot of comedy roles, and he had played case in point like the Human Torch in Fantastic Four. And when people said he was going to be Captain America, I saw people losing their mind. But I had seen him in a Danny Boyle film called Sunshine, and I thought he was amazing in it. And I was like, wow, this guy can act. So if he can act, it doesn't matter. You know, he's going to do a good job. Oscar Isaac's an amazing actor. I've seen him in so many things, and he's always phenomenal in it. So like, he's just going to do a good job. And yes, so I think it's interesting. I think it'll be cool. And the directors they're hiring seem really interesting too. It's
yeah,
not like it's like indie filmmakers who've done interesting things. Like I prefer that happen.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, man, like Moon Knight's not mine, so
Yeah.
like I'll find out what's happening on that show when you do. You
Yeah,
know,
exactly, exactly. But yeah, that seems to be the thing. Like, whenever a new actor is casted, it happens. Michael Keaton, he was considered a comedy actor, then he became Batman. People like him as Batman. Happened with Heath Ledger. He became, and it just happens like Tom Holland as well. It happens so many times, and then because obviously they only choose the actor because they think that actor's going to do a good job. Obviously they have a plan. Yeah, no, but coming off Moon Knight.
yeah, like no one's in the audition room seeing what they can do. Like, I mean, it happens to artists too. I guess we can get pigeonholed. Actors get pigeonholed a
Yeah,
whole lot, but like their job is to play different roles. So I'm never going to say like that guy can't do X, Y, and Z. I'll judge it when I see it. Look, hey, maybe I won't like it. Maybe I'll think, wow, Oscar Isaac, I thought he'd be much better in this.
and then become your mortal enemy.
Yeah, yeah, but like I've liked him in films I don't like, so I'm sure I'm going to like him in this.
And was it Bug Bodies was a crime? Well, I guess you kind of say it's a crime noir comic. And of course, another comic I want to talk to you about, which I actually reviewed on my channel. Make sure to go check that out. It is the one, the only Bog Bodies, which is actually, I think it's your newest enough comic. It's worked on by you, Gavin Fullerton, Rebecca Nalty, Clayton Cowles, and Heather Antos.
Mm-hmm.
Have
Yep.
it all memorized.
Yeah, you're doing well, man.
Very good.
Yeah, nicely done. Yeah, I mean, I barely remember who worked on it, and I did the bloody thing. Yeah, no, that came out that came around the time COVID kind of hit.
Yeah.
So it's actually the only thing I have out in 2020. The art book and that are the two things I have out. But yeah, that's it's kind of a follow up to a book I did previously called Savage Town, which was this crime book set in Limerick. And I love superheroes and I love working in mainstream comics, but I also like the idea of doing kind of Irish content because in my career I'm in a good place where I can just do things that are creatively interesting, and it doesn't have to be about money. So why not do it if I can? It feels like I'm like giving back, but like putting things back into culture that I come from.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I get you. And
Yeah.
yeah, and Gavin Fullerton is the artist on that. And you've actually answered this question a few times, but was there a reason that you didn't want to? Because you can definitely draw, and of course,
Oh, thanks.
oh, yeah, I'm very good, aren't I, Declan? You can draw. Like I talked to John McCrae, and like we were like, as long as people don't throw up while they look at your art, you're doing well. It could be
Yeah,
worse.
exactly. Yeah, that sounds like John, all right.
Yeah, but working with Gavin, was there a specific reason you didn't, want to draw it, or did you think, oh, it'd be nice to hire an Irish artist to come in?
I hadn't really considered drawing it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Actually, the idea I had was initially as a one shot for an artist that I liked because I thought it would be a good spotlight for him. Because I mean, I'm very fortunate that I generally know everything I'm working on. You know, I
Yeah.
have things lined up, and when one's done, I'll move on to the next thing. So I'm in a nice place that way. So, and it pays money. Those things pay money. Like Bog Bodies doesn't. No one's paying me to do that. You know, I
Right.
didn't make any money. If anything, I'm losing money. But make look, if I drew it, I would make no money for months. Um, uh, and I'm not really sure I can do that, but I can take work that does pay money and use that to pay Gavin,
Yeah.
who, you know, who was earlier in his career. Like, you know, like I make X amount of money doing comics, and like if I drew that, I'd have to really tighten my belt, which I'd be willing to do. Is just was that the one to do with? And because I had done Savage Town with Phil, I kind of felt like I like the idea of spotlighting Irish artists. You know, like
Yeah.
taking whatever spotlight I have and shining it onto somebody else and helping them. I enjoy. I like that. So I hadn't really considered drawing it, to be honest. I will say I think I could have done it. I think when I was writing it, it felt very natural, and I could see a lot of the panels in my head, and I really like drawing landscapes. So like, you know, it actually would have been very easy because there's not a lot of backgrounds. I mean, the backgrounds are all landscapes, though, which I enjoy drawing. So I think I could, you know, I could have done it, but you know, it would have been a different book. And like Gavin did great character work, which I think I wouldn't have done as well at.
Yeah.
And it's interesting working with another artist because it kind of reminds you of like maybe areas you're like when he did the design for Neve. I didn't have anything in my head when I was writing her, but when he did that design, I'm like, oh, that's perfect, and it's also way better. It
Yeah.
felt she felt more Tala
Yeah.
than I think anything. I might have drawn a prettier looking girl because that's what I'm kind of used to drawing when you're drawing superheroes and things all the time. But I liked that it felt more authentic what he drew than I think what I would have done. So you know, those are all good things to remind yourself of. But yeah, it was a mix of. Sorry, I'm ranting a little. It was a mix of one, monetary reasons, two, time reasons, three, uh, having liked working with Phil on Savage Town, I wanted to kind of do the same on a new project.
And yeah, coming off that, is there an aspect of writing crime comics that you like? Because you know, for Savage Town and Bog Bodies, they're both kind of crime comics. So is there something about crime comics that just appeal to you? Do you find them fun to write?
Well, I mean, I love crime comics anyway. Like that's why I like Daredevil so much because it's like a crime
Yeah.
comic wrapped in a superhero comic. You know, I yeah, I like Criminal. Have you read Criminal? Brubaker and Phillips.
Oh no.
It's my favorite comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's all quite adult and stuff, but everything they do, I love. I just love crime comics. I don't know what I mean. Crime films too, I'm big into.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Like I said, my tastes tend to lean a little dark. Um, and I guess there's something a little here, like there's a kind of a hero quest in there, but you know they don't always end well. I think
Yeah.
I used to love Law and Order when I was a kid, the TV show, because sometimes the bad guys won. You
Yeah.
know, that I remember I'd used to stay up like late before school, the night before school, watching them, going like, oh man, like bad guys got away, and I used to drive me mad, but in a good way, you know, in
Yeah.
that like it's good for stories to challenge you and to piss you off too. Like, you know, not everything should end up in a neat little bow. And I feel crime comics do that a lot, which is so I enjoy them. But I don't really get to draw them because I'm generally drawing superhero stuff. Um, so those books were a chance for me to make crime comics, even if I didn't get to draw them. I still got to work on them, and plus they're you know they're Irish based. So I like writing Irish characters. I like the back and forth and the dialogue, and I like making something homegrown too. You know.
Yeah, and that was my next question. Like they're both set in Ireland, because and like the dialogue is it's just so good because I could hear him. I could literally go outside and I could probably hear someone speak like that. Um,
Good.
yeah, exactly. Lovely area, lovely area. Yeah, no, but like setting them in Ireland, like, do you think that was integral to the story? Because like a lot of the dialogue is kind of centered around that. But do you think if you set this, say, Texas, bog bodies in the, what like the desert in Texas, it would have had the same impact as say it would have if it was if it's set in Ireland?
I mean, yes and no. I mean, no, I think that Bog Bodies is original in various ways. Like as a crime story, the plot isn't exactly the most original. You know, it's a crime gang, it's conflict. It's been done before, but if I have you ever again, you might be a bit young, but have you ever seen the film The Snapper?
The Snapper, no.
Well, I mean, maybe wait a couple of years, but I think you'll enjoy it. But basically, it's film based on a Roddy Doyle book, and it's pregnant. Like I guess she's 17, 18. She gets pregnant basically, and then all the neighbors are like, "Oh, who is the dad?" Like it's all a lot of social stigma around being a single mother around then, you know. Um, but like it's a very like genuine, authentic kind of look at like a family, like you know, where the dad's not is a bit stupid and you know kids are misbehaving and I mean I love that film because it reminds me of my own upbringing. You know, like I grew up in a council state, um, you know, single mother, stuff like that. Like so, and you don't see that much. So I remember when I saw that film, I was thinking, I'd love to read a comic like this,
Yeah.
but nobody made it. So I'll make it. Was basically how I felt about it, and I really enjoyed that. Now, interestingly, I've talked to a lot of people about the book since it came out, and what seems to have happened, which I didn't expect, was that a lot of people relate with it, even despite the specifics of the
Yeah.
Irish
Yeah.
stuff. So, like, you can be from a place in Texas and live in a shitty area. Sorry, my language.
No, you're
A
fine.
crappy area.
You just don't make money anyway. You're fine.
Okay, great. You're just dropping f bombs all the time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, but you can live in a crappy area and like not have a lot of opportunities and be forced into a life that you don't like. Like that's fairly universal, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so weirdly, I think the specifics add a charm that make the book a bit more original, but the story itself actually resonates much beyond like specifically somebody who lives in Ireland. Like my goal with those books is to make books that Irish people can read and go, oh, cool, this is what a graphic novel is. Because like, while Marvel stuff is great and everybody knows who the superheroes are, you know, there's more to comics than superheroes, and I don't think people in Ireland particularly know that much. So I like to make more
Yeah.
material like that they can see, but also I wanted Americans to read a story that was very like authentic how do you
Authentic.
authentically Irish, you know.
Yeah.
And because that's something they wouldn't necessarily see, you know. And I while I don't think I succeeded on the first front, I don't like, you know, those books aren't cutting up the Irish book sales charts or anything. But I do think I succeeded on the second front, which is where a lot of like a lot. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Loads of Americans like really have gotten on to me about Savage Town and saying they really enjoyed it, which is great because, you know, arguably you would think that they wouldn't understand, but I think audiences are much smarter than people give them credit for, you know.
Yeah, and I may be mistaken in saying this, but was this book at all inspired? I'm not sure if you ever seen the director. His name's Martin McDonagh. He's done films in Bruges, Seven Psychopaths. He's done a few more. But in the sense that, all right, so I basically just talk about In Bruges and kind of, but basically In Bruges, there's a main character played by Colin Farrell, and he accidentally he tries to kill a priest, and a bullet goes through.
Spoilers.
Oh, for In Bruges. Oh, yeah, of course. Spoilers for In Bruges. Basically, he makes a mistake, and that mistake is kind of unforgivable. And now the order of things must happen. And did that kind of inspire you at all with Bog Bodies?
And you know, I probably did because I love that film. I love Michael and Martin, isn't it? Both their films. So both of theirs films. But I mean, it wasn't like, I think what I liked, I would say definitely. Well, I wouldn't say it's definitely in Bruges, but like one of the characters is definitely like is
Brendan.
Brendan Gleeson. Like he was in my head definitely, but no, I mean, I'd say it's probably more similar than I meant it to be. I love In Bruges. I think it's a great film, but I wanted to do a story that was about forgiveness and the limits of forgiveness.
Yeah, that I know. And I
Sorry?
love that because you did an amazing job playing with that. I remember I read the comic and I just sat there for a minute after. I was thinking, oh my, I can't believe that. That and then I kind of walked around. And I was thinking, God, that ending was just so good. Cause and like there was one review at the back and it was like after the comic sticks with you. And I remember I
Mm.
in my review I kind of touched on that because that was
Yeah,
definitely
I did. I listened to your review, and that was actually my favorite thing. Was I love, like, because so much you read something and like, oh, okay, but like, I love it when I watch a film and I'm still thinking about the
yeah,
film days after. I just remember I saw Arrival, and it just stayed with me for the rest of the night, and I love that. Now that's not really something you can easily do, but I was trying to do something like with that with Bog Bodies. I kind of wanted you to be. I was hoping the reader would be stewing on it for a while afterwards,
yeah. And it's
because
like
it also ends. It doesn't wrap up like I was saying earlier on. It doesn't necessarily wrap up in an obvious kind of with a ribbon on it or whatever. But I I wanted, you have to feel for Killian,
mm,
because that was it. I felt I had the reader at a disadvantage, because when you're reading his story, you can't not feel bad for him, because he's stuck. We've all been stuck in a place, lost. It's happened to everybody. Maybe not your generation, because you all have maps on your phones, but we've all ended up somewhere. You're like, oh, I don't know how to get out of here, and you literally are going to. And as the story goes and you learn more about him, you can judge him more, but you have to get past that initial empathy.
yeah.
Um, like everyone talks about empathy as if it's purely a good thing, which of course it is a good thing, but like, you could feel bad for somebody as they're killing you. Is it worth? Should you feel bad for him? Should you judge him? Or, what is the limit of forgiveness? I think in general in society, forgiveness is something that is not really practiced. And I wanted the reader to kind of feel conflicted regarding, like, how bad do I feel for this guy? Can I let that go? If somebody murders your family, I know you often hear of people like who they're at trials and the parents will forgive the murderer.
Yeah.
And I always find that, like, so powerful. I don't know if I could ever do that. And like, I'm not saying that's what you're doing by reading the book or anything, but I think it's interesting for us all to kind of, you know flex that muscle and wonder, like, what are the limits. And sorry, yeah, I'm going on a bit, but like that was the objective of the
Yeah.
story. The In Bruges stuff, the similarities, I guess, are there. It's because it's two guys and whatnot. But I also, I mean, I just love the. I think I'd gotten to write a little bit of repartee in Savage Town. I wanted to do that more, and I wanted to make something. Savage Town was a very big, character. World of Bog Bodies that, like, it definitely, when it definitely ends.
Yeah, and the ending, did you always have that in mind? Because that was a very good ending, but and you see in films, it's not really a similar ending, but it's still an ending nonetheless. And you're just kind of sitting there like, what? Like, this doesn't make sense. So, and then it also works in other films like Watchmen. That's a very powerful ending, right? Because yeah, I'm not sure if you've ever read the comic or seen the film. Basically, they kind of, and it just ends with like the main. Actually, I won't spoil it really. But
No, but I've seen it. I know what you're talking about. I've seen.
oh yeah, yeah,
I,
right.
I probably read Watchmen before you were born, so.
Yeah, no, just for everyone else. I know you've read it, of course, definitely.
Of course.
Um,
But safe to say though that it's an unusual ending,
yeah,
and like I was saying with crime films, like, is, they all live happily ever after isn't necessarily a satisfying ending, and sometimes what you don't know is more interesting than what you if they told you. And I definitely, like, I left Bog Bodies in a place where, as far as I'm concerned, it all wraps up perfectly. It just isn't on the page, you
did you
know.
always have the ending like in your head while you were writing it? Like you were like since start, because I think a lot of writers are like that. Like you started it, you know how it ends, and you just have to get to that point.
Yeah, I had a very good idea. With Savage Town, I knew exactly where it ended. Bog Bodies, I had a fairly good idea, um, but how I got to the ending changed as I wrote it.
Mm,
Um, like, I think originally Kino didn't die, but I changed that. There was a certain hook at the end that I did know would be the end,
yeah,
but it changed slightly as I went there. Like, there's some plot things or some things I kind of had to rework, but
and
I had a fairly good idea. That, yeah,
it's a really amazing comic. Like not to kiss your ass or anything, but like after I read
please
it,
kiss away.
Perfect. Is there any place anyone can pick it up if they'd like to check it out?
Well, yeah, you can get it in any comic shop or bookshop. The Big Bang have this is becoming advertisement for the Big Bang, but they do have a limited edition variant cover that I did for the book. But otherwise, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it in bookshops, comic shops. Just give them the title and they can get it for you.
And there's a website for it, I believe.
Oh, there is actually. Yeah, there's a website and a soundtrack. There's a soundtrack for it
Wow.
on Spotify, so you can actually listen. A friend of mine made the music for it, and I gave him the first chapter, and he started writing the music, and then I started listening to it as I was finishing it. So it's weirdly collaborative in that way. But yeah, it's a bogbodiesgn.com. You can see preview pages. There's links to buy online. There's links to the soundtrack as well.
Yeah. A link for the website will be in the description. Make sure to pick it up from your local comic book store. Check out my review on it. But yeah, coming off that, another comic that you worked on, which you're also known for, it's worked on by you and a few other people, called Batman All-Star. So is it like you have to work on that? Because that includes one of my favorite DC villains of all time. Top 3, if not top 2, Two-Face. I think Two-Face is just such an amazing character. But what was it like to get to work for Batman All-Star? Were you a fan of Batman growing up?
Oh man, huge! Like I was the prime age for the Batman animated series. Like I was like 12 or something when that show started. I love Batman. Absolutely adore Batman. But it was great. It was the first gig I did where I totally choked at the beginning. I just froze up. All my favorite artists have drawn Batman, and they've all done an amazing job with him. And then there's this Egypt getting the chance to work on him, because I knew the editor of the book, Mark Doyle. I worked on Northlanders with him when he worked at Vertigo. Then over the years, I went off and did my thing, and he did his thing, and we talked about working together at one stage. And then he took over the Batman books, and I knew Scott Snyder. He had been to Ireland, and I'd met him when I was in the States, and so I was buddies with Scott, and so that just kind of well, I knew that it was actually going to be two different things. So I was offered two different gigs, but then the books changed as they developed. But I knew Scott was doing one with John Romita Jr. And John Romita Jr. is like, he was drawing X-Men, Spider-Man when I was reading those books. His Daredevil, Man Without Fear is one of my favorite comics ever. But yeah, they were doing these backups, and they asked if I was up for it. So I was like, yeah, I don't think I could do that. I think I was doing the Nick Fury serial for Marvel at the time.
Yeah.
But look, I wasn't going to turn it down, man. But I did freeze at first because I just couldn't figure out like what's my take. How's my different from like Renita or whatever. But once I kind of got my head around it, it was great. But I mean, ultimately, it was only 8-page stories. I can't remember, maybe 6. But we're talking 30 pages or something. So like, it was great, and I really enjoyed it. I kind of would have liked to kind of dug my teeth into more story, but and I kind of got those scripts one by one, so I didn't really know what was coming. But I did like that I got to draw Mr. Zsasz, because I had a design for him in mind when I was your age. I had it in a sketchbook one time. I was like, this is what I would do with him. So when I was drawing Zsasz, I asked Scott if I could do that, and he was like, yeah, sure, go for it. So that was kind of cool. I got to do like take my childhood idea and actually apply it to the character.
And was your design the one where he kind of, because in comics, every time Zsasz kills someone, he kind of marks himself with lines. So I think your one was that he's done it so much that he's basically just kind of
our tissue, basically. Yeah. When I was reading it, I think it was the Graham Nolan, or was it Norm Brayfogle? But yeah, he had like marks slash. And I just remember thinking as a kid, what if he killed so many people? It's kind of such a kid idea, but I love it.
You are a 13-year-old.
Yeah, I was.
Have so many times just skin tissue. Hey, it's not that many kids think. Yeah.
But I just thought it would be cool. But it was also actually was way more fun to draw too, because I like doing lots of texture in my drawing. So that I basically just got to draw like cuts and cuts and cuts and cuts. Yeah. I remember as I was doing ink washes, I was like, when do I stop? But no, I really enjoyed that. Like, and the tough thing with drawing Batman in a Batman comic was trying to not draw Batman. In that, I kind of feel that Batman is cooler the less you see him.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
when you see shots of him looking cool, I mean, it's cool. Don't get me wrong, but I think as a character, he has more presence when he's more of a shadow.
yeah,
And I so just wanted to draw shots of him looking cool, but I had to kind of step back and go like, if he's in a shadow, he's just going to be more, because it's not really about it's more Duke's story. So I feel like Batman's more imposing as a kind of a mentor
yeah.
when he's just standing there in shadow, rather than if you can just see all the bells and whistles on him, you know.
Yeah. And another comic you worked on is called, this is actually, I think, my first ever one of your comics. I might be mistaken saying so. It's actually called Deadpool versus Old Man Logan. You worked on this. I remember I picked it up in Forbidden Planet. I was holding it the whole way home. And yeah, but you actually worked on this. And was this the first comic you ever wrote for Marvel? No, it wasn't actually. I think it was Nick Fury.
Yeah, actually, Nick Fury was the first one I wrote and drew. Um,
Yeah. And how did
uh,
that come about? Because how did you make that transition from being an artist into writing?
um, well, it's kind of weird because I think maybe most artists want to write and draw, and a lot of editors don't want them to because it's better for them if they're just drawing. But there are other editors who do really want it, and so I remember Will Moss was the editor on the Captain America books, and he liked Injection, the book I was doing at Image, and he just threw me the idea. He said, "Look, I know you're probably not going to be able to do this, but if you were willing to draw this story, then you could write it too." And I think he knew exactly what he was doing because I couldn't say no to that because no editor had really asked me to write and draw before, none. Uh, and if I'd ever suggested writing something, the answer is always, "Well, what have you written before?" And I didn't really have anything, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Now I was working on Savage Town at the time, so I was planning on getting something out, but that was going to be a while away still. So it kind of worked out. I was writing Savage Town and Nick Fury around the same time. But but anyway, yeah, sorry. And Will, so Will was great. Will is an amazing editor. Like he did Squirrel Girl and Black Bolt, and he does all the Thor books now, and he does uh, the Hulk, which is how I got this Hulk book, is because I was talking to him and he offered me the one shot, and I was more than happy to do it because he'd already offered me my first writing and drawing gig. So if anything, I was more happy to do it for him, you know. But yeah, he took a chance on me, and it was a great experience. I really it was interesting because those Nick Fury stories were short stories but told a longer story. So if you read it in issues, you're reading short stories, but if you get the trade, it's all one story, and that was really interesting to do from a storytelling point of view.
Did you do a silent Nick Fury one shot, or I might be mistaken to say so?
No, one of the short stories was silent.
Yeah, and was
Yeah,
that
it was a
hard?
Black Widow. It was one where Black Widow is chasing him through a shield
Yeah,
um, department, and she tracks him, but she can't see him, so they fight in the dark, and he gets away basically. But yeah, that was a silent story within
nice,
the longer set of stories.
nice. And another one you
Yeah, it
were,
was great. I loved it. I had a great time.
yeah, Deadpool versus Owen and Logan. Was that fun for you to write?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was tough because I hadn't drawn. It was actually offered to me to write and draw, so that was really cool. And I would have loved to have written and drawn it, but I was very busy on Injection at the time. But
Yeah,
there's no way I could have done both. So they were like, oh, "Okay, don't worry about it." So I chanced my arm basically, and I said, "Well, look, if you are willing to have me write it anyway, here's a comic I've written, which was Savage Town. I had the first chapter of that done and lettered, I think. So I was able to send them that and go, look, I can write for another artist, and you were willing to let me write it anyway. And then they said, well, would you do covers? I'm like, sure, you know. Um, and I think remember somebody was saying like, somebody might think you've drawn this too. I'm like, yeah, fine, let them think of that. I don't mind,
doesn't
you
bother
know,
me.
as long as they buy it. Like, but I suggested Mike Henderson for that because I really liked his work on Nailbiter, and he was phenomenal. And I liked it too because he's not the same as me or anything, but I think we have a lot of similar sensibilities. And he does some nice ink wash work in his pages too. So that felt like a very I don't feel very natural, but it was definitely intimidating to just write something for Marvel. I'd like to do it more, to be honest, because I think there's more characters at Marvel that I'd like to write than I would like to draw. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess you're.
Um,
Sorry.
Like I'm trying to think. Like I don't want to draw. Uh, hmm, I don't know. Sorry, I'm trying to think of character I really don't want to draw, but it's probably not a good idea. But there's characters I like. I just don't want to draw whole stories, but I would like to write them. But anyway, yeah. So I chanced my arm with the editor, and she went with it. So I was delighted.
Yeah, and I had a flick through, and there's a lot of contrast in between dialogue for Deadpool and Wolverine. 'Cause you have Wolverine, and in the comics, he's traditionally like snicked bub, and like he's kind of just angry. And then there's Deadpool, who's kind of breaking fourth walls, and it's very funny. So is it hard for you to make a contrast between the dialogue because you can't have them sounding similar?
No, well, I mean, actually, no, it wasn't hard because they are two different characters, and because they're so diametrically opposed, it actually makes it more fun. You
Yeah,
know, like the best thing about those two characters that Deadpool really likes Wolverine, but Wolverine really doesn't like Deadpool. Especially when it's not just Wolverine, it's Old Man Logan, so he's even more cutthroat. You know, um, so that was just made it more fun. But like Deadpool was harder to write because his tone is so specific. It's comedic yet not
Deadpool.
cartoon. Yeah, I really like drawing Deadpool. I'd say. Um, it's fourth wall, but like you don't want to break the fourth wall all the time. So that was tough. Wolverine or Logan, oh, excuse me,
Mhm.
he's way more. I feel like I'm writing myself when I'm writing Logan. A more cantankerous version of it. Plus, also, I'm not writing an Irish accent, but he has more of a kind of he has more distinctive
Yeah.
way of speaking than Deadpool. So I liked all the dropping the G's and things like that. That was more But and I remember writing Bob. Remember I wrote Bob. I was like, oh my god, this is so cool.
You're just fanboying out as you wrote Bub, the word Bub, yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And speaking of Wolverine, this is actually a cover you did for X-Men. It's actually my phone wallpaper. But this was actually a variant cover for X-Men. And I know when you were younger, you did a drawing of X-Men, and it's kind of similar to this one. They were on the rocks. And now, at your age, you've gotten to draw like the X-Men on a cover. So what was it like to get to draw all of?
Well, it comes down to me, Daniel. If I'm ever drawing characters on something, it's rocks. I love. I had a girlfriend once who said like, "So what is it with you and rocks?" I'm like, "I just like drawing them." So that's why they're always like perched on rocks. I just did a USA agent commission. I'll post it during the week, but like same thing. He's on rocks. But sorry, what was the question? What's it like drawing them?
Yeah, what was it like to get to draw them? Because they're all very different. Like you have Wolverine who's short, but Beast who's short, Magneto who's kind of flying. So what was it like to get to draw the X-Men?
No, it was cool. I think there was a variant cover for a certain program, so they knew that they wanted specific X-Men and they wanted them in specific costumes over the course of X-Men.
Yeah.
So that was fun too. Like I always wanted to want to draw Jean Grey. It was cool drawing her in her new X-Men's costume. Same with Beast. Same with the white costume Magneto. Same with 90s. Who was the 90s characters I drew? Or no, the giant size X-Men Storm and giant,
I
like in a weird way, it's like getting paid to do fan art, when it comes to that stuff. And that was amazing. I mean, it is amazing to sit down and like be paid to draw the stuff that I drew when I was like 12. It's crazy. And it's those moments are nice because they kind of remind you how lucky you are to be where you are. Um, and there's just the added element of just like being a fan and drawing cool characters.
And another thing you wrote was actually it was a comic with Wolverine, Captain America, and Deadpool. And
I didn't write that. I drew that. That was
yeah,
Jerry
you did
Duggan
that,
was the
sorry.
writer. Mhm.
And yeah, you said like because you mentioned like the characters all kind of had to look different. So is that hard for you to kind of because like of course when people think of Wolverine, they think of someone who's like 3 foot four, he's like tall and he's kind of angry. When you think of Spider-Man, they think of this like a slender 16-year-old. And when they think of Captain America, they think of kind of a big, powerful character. So they're kind of all next to each other in a lot of scenes. So did you try hard to make them all kind of look different?
I did actually. Yeah, I made a point of that. I mean, I personally get really annoyed when people draw Wolverine as this like 6 foot muscular. Like Hugh Jackman has done damage to that character to a degree. I love Hugh Jackman. Don't get me wrong, but like Wolverine to me should be, especially in the comics, should be short and stubby. So I made a point of like, if anything, it helped because there's a Wolverine short and stocky. Deadpool is kind of like regular frame,
Yeah.
and Captain America is just a bit broader. So having the three body types was something I definitely wanted to concentrate on, because it can be tough when you're drawing multiple characters and multiple scenes and multiple issues. You can kind of your brain can kind of just go on autopilot and just draw a figure. You just draw the figure and that's it. I think that's how a lot of characters tend to look the same and things like that, is because the artist is drawing so much that it's hard to kind of, it takes extra time and effort to make those decisions. It's not that like I'm more brilliant than anybody else. It's just that I, you know, maybe spent the time doing that instead of like, you know, talking to friends. But yeah, it was definitely something I wanted in the work, to make sure that they all felt like different characters.
And you actually got to work on Wolverine as well, the one and the only. So what was that like? And you actually got to design a suit for him, I think.
Got to design a suit that nobody liked.
I thought it was a very cool suit, actually.
I know, yeah, I like it too. Like if I was going to come up with my own Wolverine suit, it would have been different to that, but it was specific to the story, because of how Charles wrote the Return of Wolverine. There's a lot of story elements to it, but I mean, that was cool, man. To draw a costume for Wolverine was savage.
Yeah, not many people can say that, actually. You know,
exactly.
I actually interviewed the voice actor who was Wolverine in the next cartoon. Yeah.
What's his name?
Cal Dodd.
Yeah, what a name.
I know, his full name is actually Cahill. Like, he's from
I
Ireland.
was looking that up. Yeah, is he from Ireland originally, or?
Yeah, he was born in Ireland and he moved, but he's a really great guy. And like he knows how much Wolverine means to people. And like I mentioned, there's so many artists grew up loving X-Men and that got them into it. And he's like, oh yeah, that's very cool. Yeah, but he's a lovely guy anyway. That's just me doing some little self-promotion anyway.
How did you get him?
I'm just very likable. It's just my charm, I suppose, you know? Like he just
not coming across to me, man.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I'm only messing around. Yeah, no, I don't know. I think he's just, what can I say, you know? No, actually, I contacted him, yeah, but it was really great to have him on. And like, I'm getting to interview people like you, which is amazing. This is just my own excuse to talk to people and a shade of under interview.
Look, man, what else are you going to do during lockdown? Like, why not do an interview show, like, you know?
So if they say they're busy, I know they're lying.
If you don't mind saying, you're pretty good at it too. Like, you clearly do your research, you know?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be able to look you up, watch every interview you've ever done, and know everything about you. I'm actually now a Declan Shalvey expert. I know everything about you.
You should consider doing like some kind of masters in Declan Shalvey studies and see how far that gets.
I've already done most of my research. Like, I'm definitely going to pass. If anything, I'll get a C-. So
yeah,
I got that going for me. But yeah, also your art book. When I talk about that, where can people? Oh, actually, we already talked about this. You can get this from Big Bang Comics.
You can get it from anywhere. I mean, it's available in any comic in any shop. If you just tell them, they can order it in.
And this is cover I really love, and I think you love it as well. It's the Banshee cover, of course. For those who don't know, Banshee is essentially the only Irish X-Men. He was involved in the cartoon of X-Men, the animated series, for a few episodes. And in the background, the cliffs of Moher are there. And I remember you have a funny story about how, like, they're not even meant to be there, but no one knew.
Yeah, well, I mean, technically he's from Mayo.
Yeah.
So his castle, Castle Keep, is in Mayo, but like Americans aren't going to know that. I mean, but also like I kind of wanted to draw the cliffs of Moher. Like I've been there plenty of times now, and I love, like I said before, I really like drawing landscapes.
Yes.
So like in some ways I don't think that's a great cover, because it's the most basic superhero pose you could come up with, but I think with the cape and the background, it helps kind of work. You know, they kind of the contrast is interesting. So yeah, that was, I mean, that was also a variant cover for Uncanny X-Men. So 1, I got to draw a cover for Uncanny X-Men. 2, it was Banshee. You know, 3, I got to draw him in Ireland. You know, so cool. I know it's silly, like those things. It's just cool, you know.
Yeah, in my school, I think it was about 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, we were doing a project on myths of Ireland, like the Banshee, who, of course, it's because of his scream, and like people like, you know, trolls and dwarfs and kind of creatures and all that. We were doing project that, and I got Banshee, and half of the project was just about the actual Banshee, and then turned it into me talking about the X-Men Banshee. And I printed out a little picture of your art and I just stuck it up there.
Oh yeah.
And then half of it was just like, the Banshee is a mythical creature. There is a character from X-Men based on the Banshee. And the rest of the project was just me talking about the Banshee from X-Men. Branded very well. I think I got like a C. No, I'm joking. I didn't pass them anyway.
I'll tell you this. When in English class in school, we had to write a short story, and I completely lifted. I think it was Batman Year One. I changed the characters and everything. There was a scene, I can't remember what it was, but I just totally ripped off Frank Miller, like completely ripped off. I don't mean inspired, I mean ripped off Frank Miller. And I remember the English teacher was like, "This was very good." I was like, "Oh, thanks." Like I was such a swot in school, but like I must have been going through a rebellious phase or whatever. But yeah, I completely robbed a story from somebody else in class office, and I got a really good mark because of it.
Eh.
Hey.
Well, at least
So
you're admitting it
there's
now.
a lesson there, I guess.
Because it will end up well. Yeah, I'll remember that. Thank the knowing lesson.
Yeah, no worries. You stick with that. It'll get you far.
I definitely do. Anyway, but I think I know the answer to this, but I just want to talk to you. If you could work on any comic with any character, who would it be?
I mean, I'd love to do, like I say, I'd love to do Batman and do a proper stint on Batman.
Yeah.
Like a 10-issue series or something. So like not I wouldn't want to do a monthly book, but if I could do like a mini series or something,
Yeah.
I'd love that. Or Daredevil.
Exactly. I was hoping you said Daredevil.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Daredevil is totally bucket list. I mean Wolverine too. Like I've gotten to write Wolverine, and I've gotten to I've gotten to write Old Man Logan, and to draw Wolverine, and I've gotten to write and draw Wolverine for a short story. But like I mean I'd love to do a proper Wolverine story. Like if I got into write and draw Deadpool versus Old Man Logan, I think I'd be more satisfied on that front. So something like that I'd like to do.
Yeah, Daredevil is an amazing character. Like if I ever got the chance to be a writer, I'd love to work in Daredevil because I think he's so different than most superheroes because you have because he definitely gets knocked down and you can see that a lot, but he always kind of gets back up and it plays into religion and all that. And there's so much things you could do. You actually wrote a short story for Marvel 1000 and it's like The Lord Took My Sight. And I actually love that. It was just a one-page story from Marvel 1000.
It was, yeah, they were all one-page stories, and I got to. I think they said, "Is there any character you'd like to do?" I was like, Daredevil. No,
and you've done covers
actually. Actually, if I recall, that's the only time I was asked to write something and not draw it. But then I asked if I could draw it because I figured if I could get Daredevil, I figured if that's my one chance to do it, then like if I don't get to draw Daredevil, fine, because I've gotten to do it already. So yeah, I made sure I got in the art book too.
Yeah, and you have you've done a few covers for Daredevil actually.
Yeah, although I try not to. I've been offered other ones, and I've turned some down just because. So this is my plan. Whether or not it actually happens is, I don't want to saturate people with Daredevil drawings in case I actually do get to do it. I don't. So we'll put it this way: if I say Hulk, you've never seen me really draw Hulk before, and now that I've done it this one shot, I think it's going to be more interesting because you don't know what you're going to see.
Yeah.
And I'm worried that I've drawn so much Daredevil that no one's going to be excited to see me if I ever got a chance to do it. I might be totally wrong here. This is just me thinking, that if I don't want people to go like, oh yeah, whatever, fine, because they've seen it already. I want them to be excited about it. So I try not to take too many Daredevil cover gigs, but at the same time, it's very hard to say no because he's my favorite Marvel character.
Oh, I'm gonna have to turn you down. There's one character, and it's like he's kind of an obscure villain, but he is in my top 3 with Two-Face. It's Bullseye. He appears in it a few times, but he's just a character that fascinates me. So if you ever do get a Daredevil run, make sure he's in it and make sure it's the Colin Farrell version because all the other ones just
has to be the Colin Farrell. There's no other version, is there?
Colin Farrell.
No, yeah, he's great. I don't know. I think Matt's greatest villain is himself, though. I think that's Matt is the one who hurts himself more than anybody else. And I do like the whole Catholic guilt stuff too. Like I like the Irish American connection and stuff. But I mean that's the dream. Otherwise, I'm more than happy just to kind of do my own stuff from now on. Like so, I'm lucky that I get offered cool gigs. But like I've kind of got my own things I want to do in the next couple of years is where I'm focusing on anyway.
So you've heard it here first. Declan Shalvey's writing a Colin Farrell Bullseye mini-series coming out.
Correct.
I'll quote you on that. I'll bring it everywhere. And
I'll write bad Dublin dialogue, like because I can't really do a Dublin accent, so I'm just gonna. That's how he's gonna sound. It drives Mooney crazy.
Yeah, canonically he's alive, so you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that means there's still a room for him to return. I see. I'm great. I'd be a great comic writer, wouldn't I? Bringing back Colin Farrell as Bullseye.
You'd be beloved.
Yeah, exactly. Big shrines of me dedicated all.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, but you've actually designed some cool costumes, and said costumes have turned into action figures, and they've been in games. So what was that like?
Class, like less class because you don't get paid for that.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice if they at least sent you like the amount of Moonknight toys I've seen, and like I'm like, I'd like one of those, but like, you know, that's the deal you sign when you sign on work for hire, you know. But no, it's cool. Like I remember somebody sent me the video design sheet for I can't remember which video game it was. It was right around the time I was doing Moonknight, but the editor sent me like, "Oh, he's going to be in a video game." I'm like, class, that's my design. And I just was looking at the Marvel solicitations the other day, and I saw that Mark Bagley is doing covers for Amazing Spider-Man, which is when I was reading. He was drawing Amazing Spider-Man when I was a kid. I love Bagley, but there's a drawing of Bullseye, and it's the character, it's the costume I designed like back on Thunderbolts. So I'm like, Mark Bagley is drawing my version of Boomerang on Amazing Spider-Man covers. Like, I mean, I can't lie. Like that stuff is really cool. It's nice when a design sticks around for a few years.
Yeah.
Because I think they've already redesigned Moonknight since I was on the book. I think he's all in his white costume again now. So some of these things can kind of pass by pretty quick. But the Moonknight stuff, and I'm trying to think what else I designed. I designed a few things actually. I saw there's a new Marvel game that Nick Fury's in, and it's his costume I designed for him. Little things like that. Like you get a mad kick out of it. Like I can't lie.
And there's an upcoming comic I want to talk to you about. Your new Immortal Hulk Flatline comic. Can you tell us a bit about that? Without spoiling anything, of course. I should just spoil the whole thing. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, sure. Here is. So basically, what happens is this.
It opens.
I know. Well, I don't know. Have you been reading Incredible Hulk at all? Or sorry, Immortal Hulk?
I've read some of that. Yeah, Al Ewing's run with Joe Bennett. It's fantastic. You know,
it is. It's really, really fantastic.
It's really fresh take on the character of Hulk, because he's a character that can be kind of sometimes portrayed as just a big and angry guy, and then there's just Bruce Banner's kind of genius. But you can do a lot with.
There's been lots of innovative takes on the character, but you know, how many innovative takes on a character can there be? You know, Peter David did so much amazing stuff on that character, but Al has found some really great fresh ground, and how it's applying to the mythology and is great. But so basically, Marvel have done they put out a one shot a while ago by Jeff Lemire and Mike Del Mundo. Pardon me, sorry, but so that was a really cool one-shot set, like in the early days of the Immortal Hulk run. So basically, Bruce is just kind of like he's keeping a low profile and just trying to get by, you know. So that's basically was all I had to go with. They're like, okay, so do a story that works in that world, is self-contained, and I personally love one-shots. You don't get to see them that much anymore, and I love how, you know, they work within, like, you don't need to read Immortal Hulk to read this, but if you are reading Immortal Hulk, you'll get something out of it too. And Will Moss offered me the one shot. So he asked if I wanted to write and draw it. I asked if I could color it as well, because I've been coloring a lot of my own covers for the last couple of years, and I kind of wanted to flex my muscles on more storytelling when it comes to color.
Yeah.
So he was up first, which was great. So I've done the whole thing myself, and it's basically Bruce is kind of keeping a low profile. He's working in a bar as a what's it called, a busboy.
Oh, busboy.
Yeah, you know, like the bussing tables and stuff, you know, and cleaning dishes and loading things. So basically, he's just got a job on the slide, just trying to get by. And someone from his past tracks him down, and things go smash.
It's Colin Farrell's Bullseye tracking down Hulk.
Colin Farrell's Bullseye.
Oh my god! I knew it would come. Oh, yes, can't wait.
So yeah, that's why I was so quiet on that earlier. I didn't want you to spoil my story.
Well, it'll be good though. I'm sure you can do something with Colin Farrell's Bullseye chasing Hulk. But yeah,
well, I will say it is actually. The character is Irish.
Ah, is it?
That's right. Her name's Noreen Newland.
Wow.
Can't remember why. I just like it doesn't matter. I just like, if I can sprinkle in a little Irish, why not? You know. So yeah, basically, she's a character. She's an old mentor of his, basically, who she was a teacher
Make
of
sure
his
don't spoil
before.
too much for people.
Yeah, no, that's all in the first five pages, so
Oh, very
that
good.
should be fine. So she because after the events of like Civil War II and everything, which is why Bruce is on the run. Yeah, she kind of tracks him down and has a talk with him, and then things progress from there.
And just as it's about to end, Colin Farrell Bullseye drops from the roof. He's pulling out machine gun. He's blasting everyone.
Why are you telling me to not spoil things if you're just going to spoil things, Daniel?
Oh,
For God's sake, just leave it alone,
Sorry. I didn't spoil that on you.
But no, I loved working on it. It was great. I'm hoping that it's really entertaining and fun and smash with a bit of an emotional core to it. Because I think that's what they do so well in the Immortal Hulk book, is that it's, and some cool body horror stuff too. But Bruce Banner's a tragic figure, so I want to make sure that the cool thing about doing a one shot is you can just go, okay, well, this is what the character is, and I just need to stick with what this character is. And I hope I did it justice.
And that comes out February 16th.
17th.
17th, so close. February 17th, pick it up from your local comic book shop. It looks amazing. You can actually go on Twitter and see some samples of the art, but he does an amazing Hulk. But yeah, make sure to pick that up. And Declan, thank you so much for coming on. What a pleasure it's been talking to you. Is there anywhere people can check you out, whether if they want to find you?
Yeah, sure. I have a newsletter where I post every 2 weeks about what I'm working on, with like secret project titles, so I can that way I can kind of talk about stuff before it's out without giving it away. But I'm on Twitter as Declan Shalvey, on Instagram at Declan Shalvey, and yeah, that's it.
Perfect. And is there anything you'd like to promote? I mean, anything you'd like to talk about besides your Colin Farrell Bullseye story?
No, just the Hulk book. I've nothing else out that I can talk about, but I mean, the art book I'm really proud of too. That was a lot of work, and I was very flattered that Marvel were willing to do that, because all the other people they have on there were like big names. So I managed to sneak my way in there. But yeah, Bog Bodies, the art book, and Immortal Hulk out next month.
And Punisher versus Barracuda. I don't know, maybe that's recent enough, is it?
That hasn't come out. That was kind of put on hold after COVID, and I don't know what the plan is with that. So
I will.
there's 4 issues of that in a shelf somewhere. So I've no idea what's going to happen with that. But some stage, I'm sure it'll be out.
Declan, thank you so much for coming on. I never really thought I'd be able to interview you. Sorry for spoiling the Bullseye Colin Farrell thing. That's on me.
Okay.
I'll do better next.
I'm more offended by your BRUGES spoilers, but it's fine.
Oh yeah, well, that's just some film. Like, it's not Colin Farrell's Bullseye, is it? So
Colin Farrell,
yeah.
He's in it,
All right, well, yeah. Thank you so much for coming on, everyone. Please make sure to donate National Deaf Children's Society. Link for that in the description. But thank you guys so much for coming on, Declan. Such a pleasure interviewing you. But yeah, make sure to like and subscribe and comment as well. Follow Declan on Twitter if you'd like to, for the newest Colin Farrell Bullseye updates. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.